A very good evening, parents. My name is Andy. I'm currently the head of high ability growth at MyStretcher. And prior appointed to this position, I was previously the head of the gifted education preparatory program at MyStretcher for the past 10 years. So today, joining us here to help answer some questions that parents may have is our academic director, Lim Wei Lun. So some of you who have attended may have attended his talks before. Okay, so Willow is here to assist with the questions here, as well as teacher Sarah. Okay, he's here also to help answer questions related to tonight's session. So let me quickly share the slides. Before we start, maybe can we have a show of hands from parents? Do you have any children who have taken part in any mathematics competition before in Singapore? Anyone here who has experience of sending their children or accompanying their children to such examinations? Okay, we have we have several parents here. Okay, good. Okay, good. So tonight tonight's session, basically we're going to share with you the three main competitions that students in Singapore will take part in when it comes to primary maths Olympiad. So one moment, just let me move on to the next slide. Okay, the first competition is, the acronym is RMO, Raffles Maths Olympiad. It's competition organized by Raffles Institution. So it is open. There are two categories. One is the open category, which is only for P6 students in Singapore. And they also have a junior category, which is open to the P4 and P5 students here in Singapore. So I think some parents may have already received notification from their schools, from your child's school. The registration has actually commenced. Okay, so if you look at this information, is actually readily available at RI's Maths Olympiad website. So the key dates goes is as such. It has opened for registration 28, and you will run all the way to 25th of March. Round 1 commences 9th April. Round 2 only by invitation, 7th of May. So registration is only done via school. Candidates are not able to register them on their own. So for this particular competition, students need to register through their school. So usually what I know is that students who have been selected prior, to join the school's mathematics Olympiad enrichment programs, they will be automatically enrolled, right? The school will speak to the parents and they will enroll these children for this competition. Okay, so for this, you may want to check with your child. If not, you may want to check with the school teachers as to as to as to if the registration has already taken place for your child's particular school. Okay, so please take note of registration is via the school. So at any point you have any question, feel free to type in the chat. So likewise for the junior category, registration has just started via school only, and it runs all the way from the 28th January to 9 March. So if you notice here, the round one and the round one both are on 9 April. So basically they take the same test. The open category and the junior category, the children take the same test. Okay, the same test for round one. However, for the second round, they'll be sitting for different tests. Okay, just take note of that. The next prominent competition that is really popular among students in Singapore is the Asia Pacific Maths Olympiad competition, and this is a competition organized by Hwa Chong Institution. So this competition is not only open to students in Singapore, but it's also open to students in the ASEAN Pacific countries. So what they will do is that they will have centers set up at different there are different test centers set up in different countries, of which students will have to come to take the test. right? So for Singapore students, our registration is online via school teacher in charge. So the teacher will have to again collect the names of those students who are interested or been selected by the school, and the teacher will arrange for them uh, to be arranged to sign up for them on their behalf. First round takes place on 16 April, and second round again is by invitation only. Is on the 20th May. For the P5 level, it's actually different. First of all, they sit for different tests for this particular Maths Olympiad test. So from the information provided by Hwa Chong, information would have already been disseminated to parents, P5 parents through the parents gateway, notifying them that registration has opened and how do you go about registering your children for the test. Okay. So this one, I really strongly encourage parents uh, who have primary five children. If you're here tonight attending a test, attending this webinar, I would strongly encourage all of you to look up for the information in the parents gateway and follow the instructions. After this, we'll give you we will share with you I'll share with you my contact. So if there's anything that you need to clarify, you may also do so. Okay, so that is for the Hwa Chong uh, Maths Olympiad competition. So the other prominent competition that many students will take part is only at the P5 level. So this one is organized by NUS High. So as of now, it takes place sometime in July. So as of now, the registration information has not opened yet. So we'll be looking out for it. However, historically, registration commences thereabouts in March all the way to April. Okay, and once it's open, the information again is readily available. So for this one, it's also registration via school. There's no individual registration. The only one that allows individual registration is the P5 ASEAN Pacific Maths Olympiad competition by Hwa Chong, of which parents can enroll their children via the portal. Okay. So at any point, parents, if you have question, please feel free to type in. It's private, yes. So as I mentioned, it's only the private registration is only for P5 students. Okay. Okay. So next, what is exactly Maths Olympiad, right? Why is it important, or how is it relevant, right? As we know, sometimes Singapore, we all students are really saying we are too stressed. Then why is it still relevant? So the fact is that it still plays an important part in measuring a child's ability, and of course, strategically, it is important. It's important if you were to see it from these specs. First of all, if your child does well, okay, if your child does well, okay, let's say platinum with APMOPS organized by Hwa Chong. So that's very clear, right? If there's a DSA on this part of the portfolio that you mentioned that you have finished this, you have completed the examination, and this is the level that you have attained, it is very clear that you have a very distinct advantage. Okay, your application will be looked at differently. This certainly for sure. And that is for DSA, right? Direct school entry, direct school admission exercise, when children are uh, preparing to enroll into secondary school. So that is uh, one of the strong advantage of doing well in such competition, because it sets you apart from the rest of the students. And of course, for DSA, there could be students applying to those schools through the academic track. And one of the academic track is mathematics. And of course, when we apply to this track, the mathematics is definitely not going to be the common questions which children are accustomed to doing at schools, right? So going through such a training would definitely be helpful. Okay, so that's point number one. Point number two, exposure. So what if my child is not okay? Let's say just say okay, I'm not. Let's say I'm not. It's not that I want to be. I know I'm just interested in maths. I know that my maths is not the strongest, even among my friends. So what do I do? Does it mean I shouldn't be taking part? No, it's not like that. Because at the end of the day, children, whether or not you're good at one thing, it depends how much exposure you have and how much interest you have in the particular subject, right? And being proficient in anything is just a matter of exposure and training, right? You do more of it, the better you get at it. So why is it important? If later during this session, I also will share with parents the breakdown of the type of questions that are typically tested and which level are these questions pegged at. And you realize that for the examination set by Hwa Chong, the Maths Olympiad competition set by Hwa Chong, there is a considerable number of questions relevant to the PSLE. Is relevant to their is relevant in the PSLE context. Okay, they're similar type of question. Of course, they are still stretched. So if your child is trained to answer this question, then very likely, not very likely lah, huh? In fact, then it will be reasonable to think that the questions in PSLE will not they could then manage the PSLE question much better. Okay, so exposure to those challenging type of questions with PSLE type, you will gain a strong advantage coming into the last stretch of the PSLE examination itself. Point number 3, bridging to secondary school maths. Of course, if you were to look at the scope, the scope of the examination, right? Because Hwa Chong's examination is actually meant for a bigger population, right? Students that is not even in Singapore. So they are more open about the topics that will be listed. But of course, they also mentioned that these questions are not limited to these topics, but at least they give you some sense generally what type of questions will come up from what topics. Okay, so children can with that means what does it mean? Means you can prepare, right? Because if they tell you these are the topics which will be tested, then if you practice questions from these topics, the difficult ones, then you will have to be helpful. Okay, so that's number 1. Uh, for RI, for the RI format, they don't specifically tell you what topics they come from, but having taken the test at having taken the Maths Olympiad competition at P6 level, they cannot also test you on things that is not at least close to what we know, right? So there will be some questions from the PSLE. There will be some PSLE type of question, but it is so common knowledge that the Raffles examination is actually tougher than the Hwa Chong, simply because it is more niche, right? Whereas Hwa Chong's one is meant for students across different countries, so it has to level up, right? It cannot be so tough because the other countries they may not have their mathematics curriculum may not be as rigorous as Singapore's, but it's common knowledge that RI's one is more difficult. So later I'll share with you a big portion of those questions actually bridges into topics that will only be taught in secondary 1, secondary 2. Okay, so what does it mean? So if you were to train yourself in preparing for this test, you will also learn topics that is outside of the PSLE scope, and these topics will be useful for you when the children goes into secondary school next year. Okay, so that's point number 3. So these are 3 very clear advantages. Okay, so at this point, let me just see if there's any question in the chat. Yeah. I really know about the format about the examination. So Raffles RMO, it is online, and children will need to go to their respective schools to sit for the test. Okay, to sit for the test. So it's 20 MCQ questions, both the same set of questions for the open and junior category. Open is for P6, juniors for P5 and P4. Okay, duration 60 minutes. So you realize 20 minutes, 20 you have only 3 minutes a question. So if you have no prior training or any knowledge or thinking that going into this class using having having some knowledge, being good at what you do in school, and you think and we think that you can cope with it. The answer is no. Later I'll show you some of the question and realize that you really need to be prepared for it. Okay, it is very difficult. Just imagine walking into the test with 60 minutes, 3 minutes per question. And if you look at the question, 80, 90% of the questions you have never done it before simply because you have never practiced them before. Okay. Round two format, top 3% open category will be invited. So this is by invitation only, and you will be in written form. So students will need to pass Raffles institution. Okay. So at this level, they also share with you the format, right? 15 short questions, open category, 7 short questions. And there are some questions which children will need to show their working to justify their answers. Okay. And this duration is 60 minutes. So that is the Raffles round one and round two. APMOPS is online. From what I gathered, it is a bit more lenient because it doesn't require it only mentions that students need to have access to Wi-Fi and have their own personal computer or tablet to take the test. And they also need to download an app. Okay. What happens is that both for ATMOS and RMO, most of the trials we enrolled, there's a trial run, right, to get students to be familiar with what they need to do, how to log in, how to write down the answers, how to submit the answers, things like that, procedurally. So when it comes to the actual exam, actual test day, they will not have to panic over such matters. So there will be trial runs, okay, both for APMOPS and RMO. So online 30 question duration 2 hours. Round two format strictly only by invitation, top 50 participants in written form, and it's only at the school itself, Hwa Chong institution. 14 question duration 2 hours. So the last one is the one organized by NUS High. Okay, paper is a paper test. Okay, so far they have not gone online. Okay, they've not gone online. It's still conducted. It's a paper-based test in the schools in their respective schools. 35 question, 1 hour, 30 minutes. Okay, and they have done away with the round two already. Okay, since 2024, there is no more round two, just one round. Okay, so that's for NUSI. I think I think this is a section where parents will be interested. So when we look at Maths Olympiad, then we start to think, how are we going to do well? So if you were to think about it, it's similar to physical sports, right? Your physical sports Olympics. There's no way you can take part if you don't train. You cannot just wake up one day and say, I want to compete in the Olympics and expect to do well or qualify or so the same thing. So for any competition, so basically this is competition math. So for competition, you need to practice. And if you were to look down, if you were to break down the level of difficulty, right? The level of which these questions are packed at, RMO, you look at almost 50% set one of question. And you see set two is a fewer percentage because why? These questions actually carries more weight. Okay, the weightage is more. And when the weightage is more, you don't have that many of these questions. So it's only 10%. And you can see the level of difficulty, as the level of difficulty increases, the percentage of number of questions decreases, right? Only few of them. So you can even go up to set 2 to set 3 our concepts, 5%. Set 1 to set 3 is about 5%. And you can see the proportion of primary related questions is only as few as 15%, as low as 15%. Okay, 15 plus P6 is about 30%. Okay. So let's look at the breakdown for Hong. So yes, being a maths competition, again, you need to have difficult questions. Otherwise, it's not going to be a competition at all. So 53% of the question are as secondary one. But you can see that uh, P6 and P5 curriculum actually makes up close to half of the other questions. So it is something more manageable. I think, uh, which is why it's quite popular, because the chances of doing well in this competition is much higher than the one by Raffles, simply because of the type of questions they are setting. Okay, so I will very strongly encourage parents, right, to at least, if you're here listening tonight, find out from your child's school, if enrollment has taken place, has enrollment started. If yes, find out from the teacher in charge to find out how to have your child registered. Then they have 6, a low percentage of questions from set 2. In summary, the Hwa Chong one is more manageable. The chances of doing well is much higher than the one from Raffles. This is the one from NUS High. Okay, you can see that many of the questions, actually, half of it is something that you should be able to manage, right, at the P4 level, P5 level, P6 level. And of course, to stretch them a bit further, you will have some from secondary one question. So what does it mean to prepare? So what does it mean to prepare for this competition? Does it mean that we have to prepare ourselves? Do we need to prepare? Because, say, for example, the times the competition rates for the Raffles and Hwa Chong, they are very close, right? Both happening in, in so do we have to retain specific vision? The answer is no, because why? They are overlapping topics. Okay. So the strategy is that we try to understand as much as possible about the question the question that will come from which topics, and within the specific training time frame, we will need to try to expose children to as many type of relevant concepts or questions as much as possible. Of course, if you have the luxury of time, then we can cover a lot more. Okay. Okay. So let's go on to the next slide. Next slide. Let me just open up this document just to share with parents what type of questions can students expect when they sit for the test. Okay. Right. So Raffles, you have 30 questions. Straight away, question one, you go into algebra indices. And this is not for me, it's not a PSLE subject. It's not PSLE topic, right? So this is beyond the MOE syllabus. Then of course you have um, geometric sequences, means you're adding up numbers which have a common difference, sum of series. So these are just heuristic methods. So just heuristic methods. As long as you can simplify the question to that point, then you should be able to apply this heuristic method to solve these questions. Okay, then of course, at the more entry level type of question, the P5, P6, you have pattern counting type of questions, right? If you have kids primary 6 level, you know that these are all topics that is common, that is familiar, right? As you can see, if the questions can be classified, means that you can practice them. If you can practice them, means the chances of doing better, your chances are much better at doing better. Okay, so this is just to give you a sense of the breakdown. So you can see many of the questions are part of this one level or at this three. In algebra, you can see, right? It's not the cross infinite number of topics. You can
Andy,
see
they're
the same
not be able
topics.
to see the file, the questions. The screen
They
is
cannot see, is it?
blank. Yeah, correct.
I see, sorry.
Mm,
Sorry, parents.
yeah.
Oh, because I was just sharing that. Sorry, parents. I was just sharing the presentation. Okay, then let me just share again. So this is okay now. It's still a PDF isn't it? Oh, okay. Yes, all the okay. Okay, so parents, this is a detailed breakdown. All the 30 questions. Column 2, which level is back at. Um, column 3, specifically what it maps to in reference to Singapore MOE school syllabus. And what we will need to try to do is try to categorize all these questions into topics which we can help students revise and practice. Okay, so just to have some sense of how difficult it could be, we also indicated that in the last two columns, like how difficult it is. Is it high end PSLE question or the big question, lower secondary? Is it classic PSLE, which means that you can you won't be surprising to even see it appearing in PSLE level. Okay. And again, as I mentioned earlier, although the questions are difficult, it's not infinite number of topics, right? There will be questions that there will be different type of questions coming from the same topic. Okay, coming from the same topic. So this is for the RI one. So if we look in APMOPS, you can see you don't have so many levels starting with letter S, right? So you can see many of them starting with the letter S, letter P. So the first thing question actually the easier ones are less weightage. So as you go further down, you realize that the P is the P, right? So to replace with the S because these are the more difficult questions, one, more difficult questions. But also you will see that many of the topics in the AppMox and RMO actually overlapping topics. Okay, overlapping topics. Just how difficult, how many do they want to put in different ways. Okay? In different ways. And lastly, this is the one by NUS High. So for parents here who have older, if you're sure, for sure, if you have student at P4, P5, P6 level, you're very likely your child will have taken the GP examinations. Yes, when they go at P3. So actually, many of the questions, at least for the first 10, 15, 10, 12, 13 questions, many of them actually are similar to the GEP type of question. Children actually taken when they were sitting for the PT, either the section or the screening test. So even you see at the GEP level, these questions overlap. Okay, overlap. Because at the end of the day, they still need to test students within the knowledge that they've already obtained at this level. Okay, so it's for and one it's a NUS sorry. So you can see the topics of look is daunting. Data analysis, bar graph, texture working backwards. So these are things many of the parents here are familiar, right? Familiar with it terminology. Okay. Okay. So again, many overlapping topics. So if you prepare for one, you're as good as preparing for all of them at the same time. Okay, preparing for all of them at the same time. That's the detailed breakdown for three, three, three conclusions. Further down the next few sections, I would like to share with you what our thoughts are administrated in helping students in helping students. First of all, I just want to before I continue, I just want to say that I think competition is important. So in fact, in fact, in fact, if we started this mass Olympiad program, we had a run at it many years ago. In fact, we were one of the pioneers. We started it in 2012, right? That was more than 2002. In fact, I was already a math teacher during the time, right? 2012. So it has been about 14 years, 14 years, right? So I think over time, because at the time PSLE was still was still a big part of students' education. Right? So many parents uh, were very focused in helping the students do well in PSLE because of the whole system, right? And over time, as you know, these days, examination have taken somehow being deemed as not as crucial as before. And I think there are not many opportunities for students to really test themselves, right? To test themselves. Because you see, nowadays, students are getting smarter. Students are getting smarter. The maths are getting better, the science is getting better, the languages ability is continuously getting better. There's no way they are worse off than students 12 years ago. No way, they're much better. So if they are much better, then what do we do? It's not reasonable not to let them be exposed to more to such challenging concepts. So which is why we decided that this year again we want to reintroduce mass learning program. Okay, so this is one of the reasons. We just put it to start then we continue. Does it take to do well in maths or in math? This is a very common question. Of course, if a child is academically good, this was something definitely visible for a child. One for sure. Right. But let's just say if you're just good at routine maths, like the one that you typically do in school, doesn't mean that you can't do what you do. It automatically mean that you do well in maths or English. Answer we know straight away is that will not be true. Right? Why? Very simple. Because question very difficult, it's a time constraint. Time is very tight. Think about it. 3 minutes, one question. If you've seen it, you still need to, when it's not the one two thing question, right? There's still several steps. So knowing how to start, learning to recognize the question, the steps that the subsequent steps that you need to take to solve it is important, right? There will be no time to think about it. You don't have time, you don't know what to do, you skip and you go to the next one. So coming from that perspective, definitely you need a strategy. You cannot just go in and hope for the best, relying on whatever you've done in school, hoping to do well. So you need to have a different strategy. You need to have a different plan. How am I going to go in and do well? How am I going to maximize my chances of doing well in examination? So it's thinking versus formulas, right? So the core Olympic training, right, is to keep away from the thinking of applying a formula. So of course, the basic formula you need to know, right? How do you calculate the area of a circle, area of rectangle? You need to know formulas. You need to know, but does it mean that just by knowing this formula you can get the answer you need? No, the answer is also no. Because why? Simply trying to bash through using conventional calculation is not going to work in this world. So Miss is basically trying to teach the other children think differently, right? Can think differently, apply fundamental concepts differently. You can use these fundamental formulas, but the question is it's so complex that you can apply it straight. You need to be able to knock down the problem into that you can start using these basic formulas. So you can best through by using these formulas, big formulas in the first place to solve the problem. So that is the whole thinking behind the math and big percent. They give you one big chunk, right? You cannot use basic formula and try to keep it away. It's not going to work. You're going to break it down into logical pieces, and you can try to find answers for it separately. Okay. So strategy is more important than what learning. You cannot memorize, you cannot learn, you cannot go through. Visual thinking. So visual thinking means that you need to be able to visualize something in the mind, right? So this is particularly important when it comes to geometry, as you all have seen in many from even in the PSA context, there were years where questions on areas perimeter becomes extremely difficult simply because children will need to be able to imagine in their mind, how to come up and repiece them together such that they can use the basic formula knowledge to do the final to get the final answer, right? But if you cannot break it up and repiece it together such that you can apply your formula, then there's nothing else you can do about it. But having said that, it also means that it's right. If you see something that you don't recognize the first time, if you look at it a few times, you recognize it sooner or later, right? It's like everything else, right? You see it for the first time, you don't know what it is, and people tell you what it is, you look at it again, then over time you learn how to look at it differently. Okay. So this one I can many parents here can also attest. Practice makes a big difference. How to look at this diagram. Okay? Especially when it comes to area of commitment. Simplification. So simplification is a key strategy when it comes to mass Olympiad. Later we will go through some example. What does it mean by simplification? You cannot bash through using basic formula. It's not going to work. And in the mass Olympiad concept, in the mass Olympiad, there is a concept called telescoping. Telescoping is very similar to simplification, which means that mathematically you can rearrange them to make things easier because in the telescope you can collect things into something that is shorter. Okay. And again, we will demonstrate what exactly this means and what. But there's a few points that can parents to think about maths Olympiad differently. Is it conventional math? Is it conventional math? Is it conventional math? The answer is no. There is a way to make things simple, but to make things simple, you need extra knowledge. Okay, you need extra knowledge. And once you can simplify those, then you can start working out the answers using the basic formulas, which couldn't. Okay. So within standard curriculum is different because as long as you work hard, you prepare hard, you you do it repeatedly, you can do it. Okay. Next Olympiad, again, not to say that you cannot, definitely you can practice, but this is more difficult. Like if you're doing something that is out of the scope now. Okay. And the question is non-routine is not because non-routine is not because non-routine is because it's special. Non-routine is because you've never done it before. If you've done it many, many times, no matter how non-routine it is, it becomes routine to you. Right? And the word non-routine is because children have never seen it before. So the more times you practice it, it becomes more familiar. Okay, so this problem naturally will be so this problem will lessen. Okay. Creative reasoning. As I've said, creative reasoning, how should I put it? Okay, let's say for example, how many people are Einstein can think about something that is non-existent, right? They talk the theory of concept is non-existent. It's going to be referenced anywhere, it just appears in his mind. You get creative reasoning, that's creative reasoning. Right? But but we can also be creative on different levels. But for us to be creative, we need to have the different parts to be creative. Like let's say, for example, I ask you to draw, I ask you to come up with for example, an art piece using the materials that you have. Because the more materials you have, the more creative you can be. So it's same thing. You have more parts of the knowledge that's related to this question, the better you can try to relate. Or is this concept related? Can I use this formula? Is this two different topics somehow related and then put it together to help me solve this question? So that is what it means by creative reasoning. In this context, it will also mean you will need to have very specific, extensive knowledge about things that is not currently learned within the physics or defined math syllabus. Okay, so that's creative reasoning. The why over the how, right? So this is again, this is again interesting maths content. Some people are driven by this way. the more complex it gets, the more confused you get, the more interested you become in solving it, right? But even if you solve it, you try to solve it, is there any different ways that you can make it? Is this the best solution? Or this is this the only way, or is this the simplest way that this question can be explained to students? As you can see now, as teachers, we know for sure, right? Teachers may explain solutions differently, because in a person's perspective, this may be to him the most easy way to understand how this solution works. But to the other person, he looks at it differently, he may find it different to understand. So I think that's the interesting thing about mathematics. Okay, there definitely be more than one ways of solving it, and that makes things interesting, especially for people who are passionate about mathematics. Multi-stage function. So yes, so this is a form of training because you see, if we are never encountered a difficult math question, we always try to do things in a fixed way. Why I say this is because it's also true for me. I've taught the GEP children for many, many years. Right? And I've seen some very difficult, some children at P3 level for mathematically very difficult. So for me, I will still teach the solution in this manner, right? In based on what is familiar to the model method and the methods. This kid in particular, and by the way, this kid is really P5 GEP, right? Well signed. He came up with an answer because he never has any writing, right? He never has any working. So he came up with this answer. So I was so impressed because for me, it was a different question. So I said, hey, why don't you come and explain to the class what he did? So he tried to explain to the class. No one understood what he did. So I said, okay, after class, can you help teacher explain? Because I'm very curious. And I was just amazed how he could put together very quickly. So he took it, bits and pieces information from that question, and he can somehow project few steps ahead what the answer could be. So you could see this is creative reasoning. That is literally the level. Okay. So Miss Olympic certainly challenges students, to have the opportunity to exercise this kind of reasoning. Because this kind of there's no way this type of qualities can surface. So if this quality can surface, you put students through this type of computation mathematics. Okay, so this is very standard. Any hard problem, you devise a method, understand the problem, devise a plan, execute the plan. Okay, so simplifying the problem. So this is really important when it comes to solving different questions, especially when it's time for constraint. So this is something I share with students at the PTE level, right? If you think that this is a pattern and if you convince yourself if that you will answer 500 numbers from now, what you need to do is just find a smaller range and convince, hey, this method of predicting the number works for this small range. And if I try a bigger range, if it still works, then it means that the prediction for the bigger range will work. So simplifying the problem. Because simplifying the problem has different levels, right? So at the simplest level is to start with the smallest side. Okay. Visual thinking is something that you need to train yourself at. And I think in particular when it comes to geometry, and I can also share that we can be a number of questions with regards to geometry when it comes to Olympiad Math. So it pays to know how to try to look at it, right? Is the di- is this part of the diagram repeated somewhere else? Can they remove it, reorient it means you rotate it around, things like that, right? So the more you learn how to look at it, the chances are better in finding the quickest way to solve it. Okay. So these are other standard heuristic methods, okay, working backwards. So this one, we'll just leave it as that. So competition maths. Earlier, I shared with parents the exact number. Uh, so this is actually in summary, right? In summary, you can see that the topics are these topics really dominate many of the lecture days of this level. But of course, having said that, these are not small topics to start with. Right? These are just a broad theory. Let's say number theory. Number theory has different theories, right? So is it possible to cover them all? Obviously, we want to cover as many as possible. But of course, something that's relevant in the context of the level of which this examination are covered. Okay. So what we will do is that we will have an idea of what the other topics are. And of course, these topics, how difficult the question could be, and how difficult the question could be. So we will try to expose students to these questions. Okay. So later, at the end of this session, I will quickly share with parents how we plan to conduct these lessons over the next 10 weeks to help come people through it. Okay. Okay, now we go. Okay, so some of you, okay, so this is just, I just want to share. So this program we are planning to commence, okay, February to April because the runway, we don't have that much runway. If you look at it, we only have 10 weeks. But I want to share with parents is that what we want to do here is to, because you see, the thing is that we've spoken to many good students. In fact, they never knew that there's this thing called Maths Olympiad. They never even had it. And and we also have spoken to students from NUS High. And NUS is very different. So in NUS High, once you go to NUS, it's mandatory. Mandatory. So you have 10 Maths Olympiad classes and you have 10 Science Olympiad classes. So it's mandatory. But of course, it also depends on how well you can do. But they also know that not all Korean can be good in particular subject. So depending on how interested they are and how good they are, they could be put into an accelerated class, which is predominantly focused on doing well in education, not just in Singapore but also overseas. So that's number one. And for the accelerator one, it's more for you get to deepen the knowledge for children who are deep interest in mathematics. So I think it's I think to go to NUS, you realize that there's real value to that. First of all, why? Because the knowledge about science and maths it's a much higher level when intermediate student, it's not so specialized. Okay, they can do well in examination, but you still talk about things that is beyond the school syllabus. We realize that the knowledge is a lot more extensive, right? And which is why even to the fact that some of them even continue to pursue their education in university. You find a teacher, they come and tell me, teacher, this is actually very easy. University year one science, very easy. Year one maths, year two, very easy. You know why? Because the university level is for everyone. It's not for the maths Olympiad or the science Olympiad guys. So for these children who have been putting through these places in secondary school, we're even learning topics which is really at the university level. So it becomes definitely beneficial and easier for them. And I think in the longer term, it is so very important because many children decided to do science and mathematics in university simply because they deepen the interest. They know exactly what they love. You can do well at the secondary level and you do so it at the higher level. And it's something very common. You can ask children and they say, hey, what do you want to do when you go to see? They wouldn't know. They only have a very big idea. Okay. So I think there's a very this big advantage. Don't really have to win all the competition, but at least get exposed to it. Okay. So at my structure, our main motivation is to help children to get exposed to it. Right. So within this short 10 weeks, we try to pack as much we can within this 10 weeks. So what we will do is we will plan for 10 session, 2 hours classroom lesson, which means students will come to the class and we will go through, let's say, for example, this week I'm going to go through number theory. Then I'm going to walk through with you all the different theories. I'm going to go through with you specific examples with these theories, right? Then after that, we're going to give you practice questions. So this one is motivation. The more motivated you are, then okay, we will going to try our very best to give you all the resources that we have to make sure that you have sufficient practice, right? We're going to make it easy for you. You don't have to look for this, you're going to look for that, what resources you need. We try to consolidate whatever resources that we feel that you need, share with children. And not only that, we will have review sessions. And uh, of course, not such a long, it's only 10 weeks. Uh, we will conduct the additional review sessions online, right? So children don't depend on it. So all in all, We are looking at least 40 hours of training. 40 hours of training. So I will encourage parents to 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 okay. Say, teacher, my child is not going to sign up for for generation. So should I say take up? You see, one of the reason why we've not for us is is mainly to help students, if you ask me, because we find a pity simply because why? First of all, much actually we are more than capable of running this course. So that's number one. Right. And we are capable of running this course and we have a still big student base. Why can't we help students try to get themselves exposed? We are not we're not going to make this course actually you see, if just for many of the parents here, if you are a mind strategy student, you realize that this course fee is actually comparable, if not lesser than some of our courses here at mind strategy, right? You will know for sure. So we are not priced at that to be expensive. You want to give the student exposure. Okay. So it's 550 inclusive of GST, whether or not you're a current mind strategy student, all are welcome to sign up at this price. Okay. So we have started planning the curriculum, right? We have a rough schedule. So, let me get my parents here who wants to register their interest. Okay. So the venue for now is this living hub for you. Currently, it is planned 10 weeks. So this is a physical lesson. As you see, there are a couple of Wednesdays slot in between because if you just follow on the Sundays, we cannot make the 10 weeks. So we can uh, make some on Wednesday. Having said that, if children cannot come physically, need to do hybrid, we are more than happy to, to have a session, hybrid session, we will still go on to the Zoom so children can join wherever they are. Okay. So what we want to do is that we want to concentrate on topics which we think overlaps, topics which we think important. That will be our focus for the next semester. Okay. So actually a bit more about the details, but having said that, because I don't want to be too technical because it's a bit technical. If I too technical, it's so very difficult because all of us try to understand different things. The real way to understand things is actually to example, looking for examples. So if you ask me, it suffice to just focus on the big, lot of Libra, speech, poverty, number theory. The strategy skills are just very simply very specific. It definitely will not be limited to what we have been. Okay? But what I want to assure you is that we try to give children a variety of questions coming from this topic so that they learn as many different skills as possible. So what do I mean by different skills? As I said earlier, right? If you have if you have more knowledge about different concepts, then you can put together, you can break down the problem, you can try to break down the problem into much smaller pieces to try to affect them using very specific knowledge across these different theories and concepts the student have learned. Okay. So the training skill don't need to be so overwhelmed, right? I think the more important thing is to focus on the main topics. Okay. So the main topics is not going to stray away from what we have seen or what we have analyzed for the prediction questions. Okay. So it's going to be relevant. Okay. For you, it's going to be relevant. And as far as we are concerned, we will try to give you as much resources, as much exposure to make it more and more relevant. Okay. So that is for the RIPMWC and RMO training we are proposing, right? So it will start in February when it ends in April. Okay, 10 sessions. But this is not including the extra sessions that we are having, one I mentioned, the online review session. So this is not planned into the physical, not planned in the physical, because the one there's a lot of flexibility, right? There's a lot of flexibility because it could be recorded and the recording could be shared with students. So the one is actually not a problem at all. Okay. So the more important one is to make sure that if you really want to sign up and you want to really have schedule, then this is a schedule we're looking at. Okay. If you have this schedule, we'll still share with you further on after this session. So at this point, any questions? Okay, good question. Would there be any replacement class? So unfortunately, there will not be. Why? Sorry, it's not that we don't want to. First of all, because first of all, the first of all, this is only going to be only a group of trainers right, for this particular program, and this is only a very short time. So we have only planned for this program to run to be conducted among a few of us here. So only one semester, so there will be no replacement class. But having said that, I just want to go back to the whole motivation of running this course. It's not it's just to give children exposure. So whenever there's a need of, let's say, for example, right, uh, miss a lesson, right, physical lesson. So what do we do? So as long as we know that, there's your child is not able to attend, we will quite, for me, I think it's definitely not a problem for us to have it recorded as well. Because we can turn on our Zoom, we can record it as we go along, and the child can have full access of the recorded session itself. Okay. So this we will try to make it will not be it will not be as routine as doing a makeup or generation classes, because we're doing a very specialized one time course all the way up to examination day. But we will try to make it easy for you. Okay. Especially when it comes to important just you should definitely don't want me to miss anyway. So for the NOS, we're also going to run a 10 program. But we have a longer runway. We have not put down specific dates. But as you can see, we can build down a bit more. You can see number theory. It is not so generalized, right? Number theory 1 and 2. You learn about factors, learn about multiples, learn about divisibility rules. So this would be helpful, right? So there are some divisibility rules that we don't know. Okay, what we divide by 99? Is there any special things I need to know about? And some of these questions require you to have the knowledge. Okay, perfect squares. What is so unique about numbers that have perfect squares? Things like that. As you can see, there are also many overlaps with the upper primary applications. Let me go to the next page. Okay, so at this point, we can share this with parents, not a problem. But at this stage, I just want to share with parents how are we going to approach to problem solving, right? I think having all these theories in mind, having all these broad ideas about what this competition question is going to about, I think the more important thing is how you're going to teach Korean systematically within such a short time frame, divided as much possible, right? For us, it's so important for us to try to break it down as much as possible when it comes to helping the children understand how to solve this question. So one thing about students is that as long as you know, hey, this problem I should be looking at it. Next time I look at the problem, I ask myself, what is the bit of pieces of knowledge that I have? And I think they relate to this, then can I adapt it using some of these things? Okay. So I'll just quickly share with you what we can do. This what I'm going to say next is actually two two Olympic questions. So this is taken from the examination itself. One from Raffles, and I also want to share with you the context of this question. One is actually that will be helpful when your child goes to secondary one or secondary two, and one is relevant to the PSLE. So the parents can understand, going to this clinic is not wasted. It's not wasted. Anyway, it's only just 2 hours. Okay. Additional review is up to the parents. We will try to encourage everyone to do it. Right? We will try to motivate everyone to do it. But the fact is that it's only, if you look at the long and short of it, it's just 4 weeks, right? And I think whatever knowledge you have picked up, you'll be useful. Okay. So let me just quickly run through two questions. Just pull up my question. Switch over. Send some progress ask about SASMO. Sorry, we have not prepared anything for SASMO. If anything specific you want to check with regards to this, how relevant this course is, how you should go in about thinking about this course, I'll give you my number later. Okay, you all can just text me directly. Mm, I think end of the day, if you were to view this mass oriented course, I just share with you my personal view. First of all, I can't say that maths is my strongest point. Okay? I'm not saying that I'm good at maths. I mean, when it comes to like O levels maths, A level maths, I can still survive. I know I still can get an A. Because Olympiad maths is not something I can do naturally. Okay. But as I do it, I feel that it's something that really also broadens my mind. How do we look at problem? It's not just simply finding the answer. But it's also about how you go about looking at this particular problem. What are the things that you can do to make it simple? And I think this don't just apply to mathematical question, right? If you have the mindset of fixing a big problem, then to view it from different perspectives and try to break down a big problem to simpler ones. I think there's still a lot of value in that conceptual training, mental training. So let me just quickly share with you once again. Because I know we're exceeding time, just give me another 5 minutes, then we'll wrap it up. And then we answer any final questions you have. Then we also will leave you with some information uh, of which we can get back to you when you register your interest. Just 1 second, I just want to find my maybe I'll just give me a moment. No. I think as I share the solution with parents, I think you can start to appreciate why why it pays to do something that's different other than getting comfortable doing things the same way all the time. Right? Okay, so let me just begin. Okay, all can see. All can see. Can see. Okay. So this is actually sorry. Can see. Okay, can see already. Okay. So you can see, so these are all with indices, right? To the power of something. So straight away we know this is not within the PSLE syllabus. Then of course, if you see the numbers are to the power of something, is it reasonable? First of all, calculators are not wow. Even if you can punch the calculator, you cannot come up with the answer. There's nowhere to best rule. So immediately you must come to this child's mind and there's no way to conventional calculation you can solve it. There must be a different way. Right. So if you look here, so how are we going to approach the training is this so we will have children think about knowledge points. So what are knowledge points? Knowledge points simply means all the individual knowledge that you uh, need uh, the points that, how to say you need how to say you need to link those points together. You need to link those knowledge points together so they come to come to a suitable solution for it. Okay. So in this particular question, right, what are the knowledge points? So straight away we can see what we mean by telescoping. This and this definitely something to do. If I remove the brackets, all this have to become minus. So that is of course basic knowledge. If you have the knowledge, you realize that everything can be expanded out. Expanded out means that you can rearrange because between plus and minus, it doesn't matter which one you do first, right? You can rearrange them. So that's what we mean by telescoping. When you start to pair them up, things seems to be easier now. Right? Things seems to be easier now. So that's the first observation. But again, how can they make this observation is only through exposure. Okay, only through exposure. And this one, simply look at it, we know already. This is an arithmetic series. Arithmetic series means what? At every three level, we teach the student Gauss summation method. Arithmetic series means you can find the sum of any sequence of number that is separated by common difference, right? And you can sum it up very quickly. So you can see, even this concept that children learn at very young, applicable at less level. This is arithmetic series. So this one is okay, managed. This one a bit headache. This one is not a headache if children knows algebra, right? The difference of square. So this one is a secondary school topic. So this one, if you see this square straight away, if you know this concept called difference of square, immediately it will come to your mind, right? Because I can take 2 square minus 2 square. So you become something like this, right? It becomes something like this. My 3 minus 2 times 3 plus 2. Okay. So there must be a reason why the question was set this way. So now I have two knowledge points already. Arithmetic series and difference of square. I got two knowledge points. I got two different methods in my mind. I can chisel out this problem. Okay. So this one is what I mentioned, right? Arithmetic series, the Gauss method. So going further down, you realize, okay, so you break it down to the solution, you find the numerator first. Okay, so you break it up, you expand it, then you regroup them, right? So you regroup them, this one becomes your square differentiator. So you know that 3 minus 1, everything, one number, because of telescoping, right, everything becomes a pair and results in 1. So you end up with an arithmetic series, right? 5 all the way to 409. It's all separated by a difference of 4. Okay? So denominator not too difficult because you expand them out, it becomes like this. Okay? It becomes like this even easy because it's just a sum of many, many ones, right? Every single pair, telescoping, everyone will give you a 1. So you just have to count how many pairs of 1, right? So again, this step is not so easy because you see, if children start to expand this out to calculation, of course you can multiply, and divide and you get this, but it becomes very big, right? So in terms of mass Olympiad is also true that many of them they will not lead you to do the root cause calculation, even though you're the last already. Okay, there's a chance that you want to do good strength, but this particular awareness is important because you know they chances are they don't need to calculate even this times and divide, right? There must be a way to simplify for them. So you see, the denominator and the numerator here is the same. So you cancel, you just leave it 2027. Okay, so this is very important because I've done quite a few maths and our question. When you come to notice, especially asking what's the ratio, what is the final answer, you realize that you don't have to simplify further. You don't have to press the calculator to find the ratio, right? What do I mean? I'll show you for another example shortly. So that's been my last example for today. But what I want to express, the point that I want to share with parents is that there is always a strategy because that is the whole thinking behind maths and calculation. There is a way to simplify. But the way to simplify it depends on how many knowledge points that you have in your reserves. So the more you learn, the more knowledge you have, the more firepower you have. Okay. So the next question is PSLE question. Okay, so this one all very familiar. In fact, some of you may even have your children done it before. Okay, so this one is definitely something that is possible in the PSLE context. So it says the diagram comprises a circle radius. Yes, we know. Okay, 2 semicircle radii, 2, yes, we know. 1, we know. Ratio, find the ratio. Okay, we know what's ratio, right? Regions A, B, and C. Okay, so first of all, how are you going to find? All these are not regular shapes, right? How are you going to do it? So no choice. So again, you're going to tell them, right, how are you going to practice? You must cut if you can rotate. Is there a mirror image somewhere, somehow? I think that come to your mind, there must be shortcut. There must be shortcut. So where is the shortcut? So for geometry question, the shortcut is only the field, right? You can paste, rearrange, reorientate it. So this particular one, it says three semicircles. So first of all, you must think about where the three semicircles is going to be. Right? The first one is very obvious, the bigger one. The second one, I think, is also quite obvious, this one, right? Okay, now, obvious, after we have looked at it many times, okay? If you look at it in 3 minutes, it's so obvious, okay? So again, as said, practice is important. So you learn how to try to identify quickly what they're referring to. If not, even take 3 minutes, just understand what the question is asking you to find out for. So this is a, sorry, I just go on side this thing. So this is a, where you okay, so because I cannot choose to open. Okay, so this is the second semicircle here, okay? Now where's the third one? The third one is here. So we know, as long as you know already, we know where the 3, 2, and 1 refers to. So if I take a look at this A here, right, I know it's half of the semicircle. I still have half. But it is something that I need to take out. Which half? I need to take out the second semicircle, right? Because this does not belong to A. And this semicircle also doesn't have this part here. So I know that I have to take this semicircle, the second smaller semicircle, I need to take it out, and I need to add back this additional third semicircle. So I know already I'm done because area of circle is pi r squared, half semicircle is half pi r squared, right? And also to my observation, I know that this C and A, they are the same thing, right? They are the same shape, just oriented differently. So I really know already. I can find A and C, and I know the whole area is pi r squared. Then that's all I need, right? I have all the knowledge point, then I can start to step by step find the solution. So this problem, it only requires students to be able to cut it up. That's it. Right? And cutting is just a matter of practicing and seeing as many questions as possible. So if you look at the knowledge point, yeah, so this one standard. Even if you know this, you can't do anything about it if you don't know how to cut. Right? So that is first thing. So the other knowledge point that they have is that even I cannot calculate the whole area. How can you calculate this area of me? You cannot calculate it. Oh, how is B? This B is so awkward. Look at B. There's no way you can find B. So which means that if I can find A and C, and if I subtract this A and C out, I can get B. That is also good, right? The remaining area is just a balance of what you take away from the total area. So this is just a matter of find B, I can find last semicircle minus medium plus small. So if you do the maths, it will look like this, right? You just do the maths, it will look like this. If you do the maths, it will look like this. Okay, so this one is A, right? Half semicircle, biggest circle radius 3. Solve the one that is not part of it, right? And you add back the smaller semicircle. Here you get exactly 3 pi, right? Because half of 3 is half of 9 is 4.5. Half of 2 is 2, right? So 4.5 minus 2 plus 5, you get 3. So C, you know, also 3 because it just oriented differently. So now the challenge is you can find A and B. If you cannot relate to the fact that this is a level, this also you cannot solve it really. But you can find this very good, you can find this very good, but you get stuck in this. We also know that the total area is by r square, which is 9, right? Because 3 is a whole by r square, so it's 9. Right? So 9 pi, right? No need to press the calculator. 9 pi minus 3 pi, 3 pi. The balance must be the other 3 pi. So 3 pi, 3 pi, 3 pi. Again, no need to press calculator. Ratio straight away 1, 1, 1. Okay, so this is what I mean. So oftentimes, math Olympiad question don't need you to go and press the calculator, right? You can express your answer in such a way that you don't need to go and calculate this, but you still can arrive at what is needed here to do show. Okay. So I hope that through these two examples, parents get a sense of how to think through in helping the children think about maths oriented question. Okay. So this is something that we're looking forward to do with the children who solve this course. So tonight I'll end our session here today. If you have any question, I will share with you my contact number. Please feel free to share. Sorry. So for parents who are interested in joining up the course, would you be able to share some information on how to go about it?
Yes, I have shared the link to
Okay.
register their interest.
So parents, so I'll share you my number here. Thank you so much, Shreya. So there's a link to register your interest. My name is Teacher Andy. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. 823446. You may leave me a message or you can message me on WhatsApp. 823465. Okay, if not, I will not hold back all the parents any longer. Thank you so much for your time. We're looking forward to see all of you at our Maths Olympiad training camp. Okay? Okay, thank you everyone.